Is it just me, or is our friend here, Gabe Newell, slowly becoming a real-life wizard? All this time he's been spending on Middle-earth, which is New Zealand, has turned him into Gandalf. Maybe that's why he doesn't care about telling us when Half-Life 3 is coming out. Because Gabe Newell, Lord Gaben himself, has turned into time itself. So the concept of time doesn't apply to him. See, you are a wizard, Gaben, and one of your most powerful abilities is using the Steam Cell incantation during the holidays like Christmas, where he promptly exterminates all of our money. I say that jokingly, but every time I see Gabe Newell, which is like once or twice a decade, he has this white shirt on with a giant beard. I mean, it can't be a coincidence. Anyway, hit the like button and subscribe, baby. Tell me in the comments right now if you're planning on buying the new Steam machine. I mean, right now, while you're watching this video, I want you to type before I say another word, because let me tell you something. You know what I like about the Gabe Cube, the Steam machine, is that it's finally recognized that the most important part of a PC is RGB lighting. And the most important part of a YouTube channel is all of you. Let's hit that subscribe button. If you want me covering Steam a lot more, then you know what to do. Let's get to 90,000. We're almost there. Now, there's nothing worse in the world than corporate AI. And sometimes I'm laying in my bed and I'm thinking, is the bubble beginning to pop? Because Microsoft is betting on AI. They're betting on data collection. And for some reason, every time you hear their people talk, they claim that there's this huge demand for it, even though, wow, look at that. There's such a demand for AI, even though literally they have to force updates into your PC every single day, adding as many AI components as possible, and prevent the user from removing them. See, Valve, i.e. Steam, the makers of Steam, don't need a plan to end Windows. You want to know why? Because Microsoft are managing it perfectly. What's funny about Valve is that their secret plan, ladies and gents, is to replace Windows. You want to know why? Because step 1, they're better than Windows, and step 2, there's no step 2. They've already completed step 1. But then again, being better than Windows isn't a huge task. Most people just want an operating system that's not a bloated mess. And what's funny is I'm convinced that the only people who use Copilot are the people who work at Microsoft. Literally nobody uses it and nobody likes it. But then again, never underestimate Microsoft's inability to detect the pulse of its own consumers. We're sitting here today and I think AI's biggest contribution of the last decade, other than creating YouTube thumbnails, will be making people move to Linux. Wouldn't it be funny if they got an entire generation of gamers introduced to Linux in this awesome side effect of how bad Windows is? Because listen, with Microsoft insisting on pushing on the Copilot blow, a gaming operating system is just inevitable at this point. I mean, just imagine, it would be very ironic if in 2027 Linux desktops just blow up because AI-induced RAM crunch has destroyed companies like Microsoft and Google who are pushing AI. I can speak for myself. I just look at AI as spyware. I don't trust it. It's run by a bunch of clowns. They will sell your data to the lowest bidder. They'll abuse the privacy that you think you have if they aren't doing it already. They will pull any kind of support for programs and then force you to buy the newest product or just increase their stupid subscription fees. Just look at Google. You know, Google's revenue source was paid in part by the quote search rankings. But now every time you search something on Google, a stupid AI summary shows up right at the top. So now most people don't even go to sites anymore because the AI summary is right there. So essentially Google just, you know, shot themselves in the foot because sites now have no reason to pay for that ad space. The same goes for Microsoft. They spend money on AI just to get rid of their own clients and their own money. So what does that mean for Steam? What does that mean for Valve? Well, Valve is doubling down on their community. You know, for Lord Gaben, taking up more of the desktop market share was taking too long. So you know what they said? Let's just take up more of the console space instead. But the problem is the Steam machine is going to be priced more like a low-end PC than a game console. Sadly, the last of the budget consoles are gone now. It's finished. Valve already implied in the past that there's basically zero margin on the model. So with the component prices going up, it's the obvious thing to do. As much as we love Valve, they're not gonna sell the Steam machine at a loss like most game consoles do. But what about Lord Gaben? Shouldn't he sell it at a loss since companies like Meta and Sony are already doing that? Oh, you naive little hobbit. Look, we all know Valve is probably the most gamer-friendly company out right now, but they're still a business, and the chances of them going through all the trouble of making custom hardware, custom operating system just to sell at a loss ain't happening. I'm still going with my original guess when the trailer came out. The Steam machine is going to be at least at the very minimum $800, with it potentially dropping down to the $700 range on sale by next Christmas. It could be $750 at release, but I doubt it. And anybody expecting that it's gonna be $400 or $500 machine is smoking the same thing Gabe Newell is probably smoking on his very expensive yacht he's currently on right now. And the more I think about it, 2026 is probably the worst year to release a system like this, because they probably didn't expect the RAM prices to skyrocket the way they have. RAMs are going up in price by like 300% in the past few weeks and months. I actually saw some kits that went up by like 500%. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it's important to remember that Valve is a corporation like many others. At least for now, their interests are aligned with the users. All it takes is for Gabe Newell to lose his battle with Balrog and lose his battle with Father Time, and we get a change in leadership, and boom, we are back to square one. So I hope every scientist figures out immortality before Gaben passes away. That would be a terrible, terrible thing. We can't let Valve be passed on to someone else who puts shareholders before consumers, which is why Valve should never ever go public. As long as Valve stays a private company, at least we can count on the next 10 years at least that they'll do what's right for gamers. The second Valve goes public, then at that point, yeah, we are FUBAR. I can imagine if there were shareholders at Valve, they would be screaming, "Why are you leaving money on the table, Gabe?" And Gabe is just sitting back with his cigar and he's saying, "You know what? We love gamers more than we love money. It's the right thing to do. Ship it." The only thing left for Valve is to create a payment processor. That's the final step. We get that, and we get true independence from those very weird people in the background, like Mastercard, PayPal, and Visa controlling us, telling us what we can and can't buy. How about you go Now listen, I want the Steam machine to work. I want it to be successful. But for the Steam machine to be successful, you need a bunch of people to buy it, so that it gives additional incentive for some of these game developers to optimize their games for Linux-based systems and entry-level PC rigs, which is a win for any PC gamer out there, whether they use the GabeCube or not. In the hypothetical world that the Steam machine does end up selling like 20 million units, it will perform better than some DIY PCs with superior specs. You know, the thing is, we shouldn't be buying these absurdly powerful, quote, supercomputers, when in reality we should be demanding that these studios actually optimize their games. The Battlefield 6 developers, when they made their new game run on the Series S this generation, they said it taught them a lot, and that they were allowed to use that to optimize for other platforms. That is what needs to happen with the Steam machine, and you know what, in short, I don't think Valve wants to give the mid or top range players an upgrade. The best case scenario is that they're using it to uplift the bottom half of users. You know, I know a lot of people who, when they upgrade, they just get a new pre-built. That might sound silly to you, but you know, we are in the small minority of gamers who actually build and upgrade our PCs. So if you're a new gamer, I don't know, with a 1080p TV and you don't already have a PC, and you aren't really concerned about resolution, then you know what? The GabeCube, the Steam machine, might be for you. If you're someone that likes Bethesda games or Cyberpunk 2077, then imagine you getting to play those games with mods versus without mods on console. It's a whole different experience. I mean, talk to every Fallout or Skyrim or Cyberpunk player about how they feel about playing one of those games with mods versus without mods. It's a completely different, stripped down experience. It's like 7 out of 10 without mods and then like a 9 with mods. Not to mention all the full game mods you can get, like Fallout London. So yeah, you know, Steam Steam, if you think about it, Steam has a massive catalog of games that don't even need a fraction of the power that the Steam machine will be bringing. For those people who are just getting into the Steam ecosystem from other consoles, they will have a plethora of options to pick from that they can run from mid to high settings. For those people, it's definitely an option. The big advantage of the Gabe Newell Steam machine is that you don't have to buy new console games at console game prices, because those costs can add up real quick. Because Steam is like, hey, you want to buy a single game? Okay, how about 2 for a discount? By the way, something I seen in another video about the Steam machine, about this whole argument of a company buying hundreds of Steam machines to kit out their office, makes 0 sense. There's no corporation that will buy thousands of Steam machines. The Steam store is the only place you can buy a Steam machine. And Valve could very easily limit the amount of Steam machines each user can buy. And Valve could very easily, with a flick of a switch, just easily limit the amount of Steam machines each user could buy. Just like the Steam Deck, if you don't remember, you'll most likely need an already established Steam account and be limited to pre-ordering one. Just imagine the logistics behind that. You need an IT department to create a ton of new user accounts on Steam, and then you need to tie them to the corporate emails. And then those people would have to buy each individual purchase one at a time. It sounds like a nightmare. If you go online, you can find a Mac Mini for like $500. I could see corporate officers buying that over a Steam machine. And when I see people say, why won't Valve just tell us what the price of the Steam machine is? Because they know that it's going to be way more expensive than most people think, which is why it could possibly be delayed. See, Valve could tell you how much it would cost, but they can get way more free press from people just speculating until it happens. Could you imagine if we ended up getting Half-Life free, Left 4 Dead free, and Portal free as launch titles? Yeah, that's definitely not going to happen, but hey, it would steamroll the launch lineup of every console of the last 2 generations. You know, I've read some Steam fanboys try and cope and say, even if it's above $800, it's fine because it's a PC, not a console. Now, the thing is, I agree with that statement in a nutshell, but it doesn't matter, does it? Because the cost to performance ratio does not match if it's even close to that price. It has less power, get this, it has less power than a 5-year-old base PS5. And we already know that the PS6 is coming down the pipeline, it's on the horizon. But you know what, since we're just speculating, imagine if Lord Gaben comes out on stage and says, hey, it's $99, and just undercuts everybody. That would be hilarious. We know that won't happen, but it would be so funny. But like I said, Valve is not in the business of losing money at this point. I think that this thing needs to come in less than $500, sub 500, to even have a chance of selling even close to what they're projecting. See, people don't mind getting something that's cheap and underpowered. That's okay. But what they're not going to do is buy something expensive and underpowered, especially now in this economy, because the Steam Deck in the UK is around £480 for the 512 gig model and £569 for the 1 terabyte model. And because the Steam machine, according to Valve, is 6 times more powerful, like I said earlier, I expect it to be closer to $800, which is just way too much. See, if Valve was smart, they would bundle in this Steam machine with a coupon of like a litany of games to kind of offset that ridiculously high price. It would push the new users who buy the Steam Deck and enable them to invest in the backlog that ties them into the whole ecosystem. At least that will kind of soften the blow, but I guess we all just have to wait for the price reveal. You know, there's 0 valuable discussion to be had whether it's quote too weak or whether it's not too weak until we get a price announcement. But you know what the thing is? We know that Valve doesn't want to give the mid or top range players an upgrade, but they do want to uplift the bottom half of users. I've already said that, but that's my speculation, and we need a price announcement pronto. I did recently see that Valve was discontinuing the LCD Steam Deck, which is maybe another way for them to save money because AI is inflating the RAM prices and because they want to save more money and put more energy into the Steam machine. Yeah, well, the biggest issue with Steam is them being little and kowtowing to the payment processors. Now that's something I should make a specific video on, because listen to me, a payment processor's job is to, wait for it, process payments. That's it. Its job is literally just to process payments. That's all they're supposed to do. To let one party give money to another party. They have absolutely no business deciding who can give money to who. I mean, what are we talking about here? At no point should they even be allowed to know what's being processed, let alone having the ability to block anything. The overreach for control is inexcusable and unacceptable, and what the funny thing is, I never really cared about payment processors until this happened, until they started pulling content from Steam. So I guess the whole, payment processor censorship has damaged Mastercard and Visa and PayPal's brand more than any of the games they're trying to remove ever could. That's the whole irony of this thing, is that imagine forcing gaming platforms to censor and remove video games for literally no reason, thinking that it might affect badly on your brand image, only for the backlash of you doing this to reflect really bad on your brand image. Congratulations, you up. Gamers coming out and exposing them is a great thing, because gamers are possibly the worst enemies to have online. Not many other communities have an autistic level of focus and commitment that can be spent dialing Mastercard support and responding to their social media posts exposing their terrible illegal deeds. Oh yeah, you definitely messed up. That's the last thing you want to be aimed at you. But the reality is, we need a new payment processor to start replacing these Mastercard and Visas. And you know what? Now that I think about it, Valve as a brand, or Steam, have enough power. They have unlimited power, because if they created their own payment system, let's just call it a Steam Wallet or Steam Coin, and listed it on the New York Stock Exchange, and I promise you, every single gamer would flock like sheep just to adopt it, just to spite Mastercard. And you know what? I'm 99% sure that the next Valve thing is going to be a phone. That just seems like the natural evolution of things. I guarantee that Lord Gaben wants to have a full living room experience, and that seems like the next obvious choice. And because Valve is quite literally the only big tech company I don't hate, I kinda wanna see what they do next. I'm not even mad at the idea. On that bombshell, let me know in the comments what you think. I think Steam, aside from the sketchy loot box stuff, I think they are one of the few corporations whose efforts to maintain consumer goodwill go beyond the quote lip service. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what they do with the Steam machine. Manix out.